so this topic is about how to make money on part-time buildings, and a lot of supers find it profitable. You know, it's like an extra gig, a side gig where they can make money on the side with these part-time buildings, whether they're a resident manager or someone that's looking for part-time buildings, but they end up, a lot of people end up in situations where they choose a building that may not be profitable for them. So what I would like to talk about in this topic is, look, there's a lot of buildings out there that have these part-time gigs. They need these part-time gigs. A lot of brownstones, a lot of smaller buildings, a lot of buildings that don't have live-in supers need these part-time supers. But the key here and the trick is to find ways to make it profitable for you. You know, a lot of these buildings can provide a super with great additional income. But so I made a list of the top things that you would need to make sure that you walk away with money in your pocket versus breaking even or not making, you know, losing money. Even breaking even is not, a lot of times it may not be worth it, because why would you want to do all this work and all of a sudden at the end of the day you are right back where you started financially, right? So I'm here with Jennifer to help me kind of answer these questions for the supers. Also, Jennifer and I work together on these buildings that come in, and we're constantly assessing whether they can be profitable, they can work for the superintendents and the porters in our network, because nothing makes us more happy than to provide opportunities that put money in the pockets of our superintendents and our part-time supers and our part-time porters, and nothing makes us happier than helping them create like great agreements with these landlords. And we do that also. Like we're as Spark Super, we provide, you know, we've been in this business for about a decade, and we've been working with part-time super buildings, and we've been placing supers and porters with these buildings that need part-time supers, and we found ways that that can profit and work really well for our supers, and we want to pass that information along, pass those tips. So I guess so what's the first thing that you get when you when these offers come in? So when, let's say you're in the Upper West Side, and let's say a building on the East Side comes in, is that profitable? Is that, well, I think that's probably the wrong way to put it. So let's say a building comes in. So what are the first things that you look at to see if it's profitable?
First, isn't it obvious that you see how much you're going to get for the job?
Yeah, I mean, see how much it is. Yeah, I guess that's the first thing that you look at is, but sometimes you don't. I mean, let's say the building comes out with an offer, says he's going to pay you $500 a month for that building. I mean, the first thing is like, it's hard to tell whether that's going to be worth it or not, right? But one of the factors that should go into whether $500 a month works is, number one, I would say, is break it down into weeks, right? So 500 roughly broken down into 4 weeks is 125, right, per week. And so now you're looking at 125 per week. You're looking at the next thing that you look at is whether this building is near you. I mean, because for part-time supers, what kills the most time, or what kills their profit, is travel time. So having to go to a building that's far away from you, let's say, and that's all relative, right? How fast, how far it is away from you is depending upon whether you're a biker, whether you have a car, whether, different situations. But I would say if in Manhattan, either way you look at it, whether you're a biker or whether you drive a car, you got to look at, driving a distance to this building and then having to find parking, or even if you're on a bike, like during the wintertime, when it's snowing, you're realistically not going to be able to ride a bike. So you're going to have to ride a train. So that travel time, considering that travel time all year round, is going to help you determine whether it's worth it or not for you. Because if the building is too far away and you're spending half an hour to get down there, whether it's by train or by bike or by car, and a half an hour back, that's an hour of your hour of your profit that you've eaten away at. So it's not the best deal for you, or you have to take that into consideration of whether 125 per week. So how do you, let's break it down into the steps. So you're getting 125 per week. You got to break that down into 3 days per week at least that these buildings need you to take out the trash and recycling, right? So we have 125 divided by 3 is $41 per 66 cents. So $41.66 per visit, right? So if you're looking at $41.66 to do the garbage, now you're looking at the real numbers. You're breaking it down. You're saying, okay, $41.66. If I spend 2 hours there to do trash and recycling and let's say the cleaning of the front sidewalk, because that's something that they're going to expect you to do, and maybe taking care of the vestibule, wiping down the glass, if that's 2 hours, you've made $20 over there, right? And per hour. And so if $20 is okay for you and you think 2 hours is sufficient time 3 times a week, then by all means that's not a bad deal. But this is where your experience helps. When you're is 2 hours enough for you to take on this building? Will 2 hours be enough for you to take for you to cover all the things that the building needs? Because the last thing you want to do is have the building unhappy with your services. You want to do your work. You want to do it well. So if you're looking at 125 per week and $41 per visit, and experience tells you that this building is going to take more than 2 hours, then that's where you're starting to make less than $20 per hour. If it's starting to take 3 hours or 4 hours, if it's taking you 4 hours, you've just made $10 an hour, and that's not a good. I would say I would steer clear away from there. So if your experience tells you that $20 is something that you're not going to go lower than 20, and 20 is good enough for you, and it's going to take you 2 hours to do that building every visit, then that's great, right? But if it's going to take you more than that, that's where you lose money. And then if you consider travel time in there, then you've already you've depleted the amount of money that you can earn from that building. So you want to keep it local, number one, right? So the lesson is keep the buildings local, or if you can get a couple or few part-time buildings in the same area, then the more buildings you have in that area that may be far away from you, or travel time, or taking some amount of travel time, then that's even better, because then you can go there and group together this work into a single visit, multiple buildings, and your profit grows from there. But unless you have multiple buildings in that area, I would highly recommend that you keep your buildings local, close to you.
How about the buildings that are close to my home, like where I live?
Well, if you're a resident manager in a building, of a building, and you're living there, then the buildings around you is perfect.
I mean, like I'm a part-time super, and all my buildings are in Manhattan, but I live in Brooklyn, and I get a part-time gig around the area that I live, physically live in Brooklyn.
Then I think that's fine,
home.
as long as you're planning on, when you come back home, you have to leave time, plan your day so that when you get back home, you have enough time to take care of the buildings that are near to you. And those buildings are great because if there's an emergency, you're right there to take care of them. One of the hard aspects of doing a part-time super gig in the city when you live in another borough is emergency calls. If these buildings need you to come in, you're going to have to travel in from your home, and this may be in the middle of the night on a holiday when you're at a family outing, and that's going to take away from your, I guess, maybe I would say job satisfaction, because your personal life should be, should be free and clear of work, So when you get that call and you're eating dinner, and you're having to come out into the city, that's not a great thing. It's not, you may be paid for that emergency call response. You may not be, but.
So are you saying it's good or bad?
I'm saying it's good because you get to it's close to anything that's close to your home where you sleep, is a good thing, I think, because you're able to take care of that building. You're able to take care of the emergency calls. So I think that's a good thing. So.
Okay.
So keep it local.
So then what about I get an offer, like I ride, let's say train 7 train, and it's on the way to my work every day. If the building is like 3 stops before, my original job, then is that also like an option? Because if that's the case, I can stop by when I'm on my way to the building, or after I'm done with my buildings, and when I'm on my way home, I can stop by and do the garbage.
Right.
What about those options? What do you think?
I think anything on the way to the sometimes people don't have the luxury of working where they live, like live in super. So they have to travel to their work. So along that path, any I guess job opportunity along that path can work out for you.
So I can be strategic about these jobs.
Yeah, you need to be strategic.
If I can create like a roadmap.
Yeah, you should create a roadmap as to how you're going to do things. We have some supers on our network, on our team, part-time supers who have a lot of buildings. I think they have 10 or 12 part-time buildings, and you have to, in order to take care of those 12 buildings, and they're situated all throughout Manhattan, you have to be really streamlined with how you move, because you have to be ready. Remember, part of part-time super work is they don't hire you. Some buildings hire you just for taking care of garbage and trash, handling the trash and recycling and the cleaning, but others may hire you also to give access to outside vendors, to be available for residents when they have problems inside the apartments, and just for supervision of outside vendors, stuff like that. So if you get a call, or if you get a call that says the exterminator is coming, or the sprinkler inspector is coming, or the FDNY is coming this month, you in order to make this situation work for you in the best way possible, you have to plan that out. Schedule those visits in a way that makes sense on your route, on your daily route. And if you don't, you're going to end up going out of your way and then going back, and having your schedule all over the place. And that's going to be where it's going to drive down your satisfaction, job satisfaction, and your potential to make money.
Yeah, it would be nice, and for other episodes, if we talk about how part-time supers in Manhattan create their own schedule and stuff, like to hear it from them.
Oh, how they make the schedule?
Yeah, how to make the schedule.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, how they're operating.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I can think of some supers who we know that have really done that well. So that would be great. But
Okay, those are the two things, like being local and like be strategic about the route, um, and you have to really break down the salary into per hour
Right.
scale.
Break everything down into per hour and use your experiences to calculate or predict how many hours it will take.
I
Which
see.
brings us to the third thing, which is how to keep your profits, keep it profitable, is be clear with the scope of work, with your customer, who is the client, who's your landlord or the co-op board, condo board. The reason is that the clearer you are the clearer you are with where your job begins and where your job ends, you can keep that customer, the client, from making you do more things that were not part of the original agreement. And that could take away your time later on. And some of these jobs could have been profitable for you, where you could have charged extra for that. And you should, because it's value that you're providing. But a lot of times when that line is murky in the beginning, when you sign up for a building, there may be different expectations as to what your responsibilities are. They may think that you originally agreed to, take care of toilet clogs, where you may not have. They may originally have thought that you were there to take care of the emergency calls, where you didn't expect that, or snow clearing, where you didn't expect that. And these are jobs that you can charge extra for, and you can make additional income from these buildings. But when those things aren't clear in the beginning, you end up, if not losing out on that money, creating tension between you and your customer, because that wasn't clear.
So, who do I talk to about that? The building manager, and say, oh, I'm gonna do only garbage and recycling, and everything's extra. How do I come up? How do I come up with that that contract? Like, do I have to make a contract? It's a part-time position, so like, is even a contract really necessary?
No, I don't think you need to make a contract. I don't think that's necessary.
So verbal agreement.
Not a verbal agreement. I think it should be written down somewhere, and I think it should be emailed to them, where you say, this is what I'm going to do. Maybe we could talk about later about how to make that contract and what could be, and also we can make it legally binding. We could talk about how to do that if it comes down to that. But often, landlords are these clients, these boards, they can be they're very reasonable, a lot of these boards. And as long as you make it clear to them that something's outside the scope of work from the beginning, it will be much easier down the road. And it's more likely that people will be reasonable in the beginning versus later on.
I see. Okay, so I have to make sure, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I have to tell, write an email, proper email to the manager or the board, whoever is hiring me, right?
Right.
And and that scope of work, like what kind of jobs I'll be doing, that also kind of connects to the first and second tip that you mentioned, which is, if I have like 5 tasks to do in 1 hour, that might be too much, right? Whereas like 2 tasks in 1 hour is like much easier.
Yeah, I mean, your experience will tell you whether how much time it takes, and it depends upon your skill level and your personal experiences with how you work, and that the more experienced you become, the better you will be at gauging how much time you need for a building, and imagining what could be the issues that happen. For instance, if a building hires you for emergency and has emergency as part of your responsibilities, or whether you negotiate a price to cover emergencies, your profitability will depend upon knowing what this type of building, what kind of emergencies this type of building will experience, and calculating that into your price.
I see. Okay. But like there could be cases where, oh, I thought I could handle all these tasks, but actually it's a little too much for me. Like in that case, what should I do?
Well, we could talk about, you could always renegotiate. No, nothing's the end of the world, and we can talk about it on another topic, as another topic. Definitely, you can renegotiate things. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be, it's not an easy thing to do, which is why I highly recommend that you think these through in the beginning, and you create a strong boundary. But if you've made a mistake, then so be it. I would say if you made a mistake, instead of keep on doing what you're doing and losing money or breaking even, doesn't hurt to renegotiate that.
Just be honest, right?
Just be honest and to renegotiate that. Look, if you're coming out, let's say you're coming out even at the end, even if you lose the building, you're theoretically not losing anything if you're coming out even. Meaning that if you're making $10 and losing $10 and you're ending up with zero, it's just the same if you didn't have the building, except you're less tired.
That's so true. Actually, I'm losing.
You're losing because you're spending your energy on something that you're not getting a return on. So
Right.
You're not making money on. So in that case, it's better for you to just renegotiate that and not be afraid to lose that building. Because, I mean, realistically, there are times when the building will say, wait a minute, I've hired you to do this, you agree to it, now you're changing the terms, we don't want you anymore.
Yeah, but sometimes a lot of supers, we feel bad about talking about these things.
Right. You have a sense of commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you feel bad because you've committed to it, and
Yeah. And I want to do well.
yeah, you want to serve. I mean, there's a strong sense of serving, customer service that superintendents have, that we have, and of course we don't want to renege on the contract, an agreement. We feel bad saying that we're going to do something and then all of a sudden stepping back and saying we can't do it. Of course, a lot of us feel bad, but I think the key to remember is that at the end of the day, you have an obligation to your family to make sure that your energy is being spent wisely. You have an obligation to yourself to make sure that you're spending your time wisely, and you have an obligation to your customer too. This helps your customers, because think about this: if you're spending too much time at one customer because you've miscalculated your time and you're losing money on him, you're spending energy, will you have energy to take care of your other customers? No, not
I'd be
properly.
like really tired.
You'd be really tired, and you're not going to perform your best. So
Yeah.
and they're losing out because you're giving too much of your time to another customer. So why would you give too much to one customer and then give too little to another customer? You want to balance that out.
That's right. It's not fair for the
It's not
customers.
fair for your other customers too. So you're actually hurting yourself, your family, and your customers, your customer base, if you're undercharging one building and you're overcharging another, or if you're charging correctly one building but you're undercharging another, so that it's taking too much time away from you
Right.
to spread. Because you have to. The whole name of the game here is that you got to balance your energy, balance your time, your
Right.
energy, and you have to be properly compensated from all the buildings. Not overcompensated, not undercompensated, but we're looking at fair compensation.
Yeah. Okay.
So you want to take it, the first thing is you want to take it local, or keep the buildings together so that your energy is spent. You want to take away or eliminate it as much travel time as possible.
Okay.
That's the key. So you eliminate as much travel time as possible by keeping the building local, close to you, keeping it on the path to your work so that you can stop off as you're traveling. You can swing by and take care of it. And you can also take buildings that are close to where you sleep, because then you're keeping it close to where you rest, and you can leave, and if there's an emergency call, you can take care of that.
And then know what I'm responsible of from the building, and it's always negotiable, but be smart about it when you start the job, right?
When you start, right. So at the beginning of the job, when you start your relationship with your client, you want to be clear about the scope of work, and you want to be clear about what you can do for them as part of your regular duties that's included in the price, or everything that's extra. And the more experience you have, the more you'll know what should be charged extra, what will take extra energy out of you, and you get a sense of what should be outside that scope of work. But a lot of part-time supers, especially those that are just getting started,
Right.
because they want these buildings, they'll promise them everything, and they end up saying, "I'll do the snow clearing, I'll do."
And then it
emergency calls."
becomes so overwhelming.
Right. So the third thing is be clear in the beginning and get the full scope of work. Try to get your hours, the number of or the amount of money per hour that you make.
And other tips?
I always tell people that look at the whole year when you're negotiating your contract. So if you're negotiating in the summertime, if you found the building in the summertime and you're talking to the landlord trying to get that building, think ahead and think of the worst snow blizzards in the winter when you calculate that price, or when you negotiate for what you're going to do. A scenario is if a landlord says, "Hey, look, can you include snow clearing with your price?" And it's summertime and it's the hottest part of the summer, you're not going to think about the winter. You're going to want that job. You're going to say yes. Right. I'll include it. But
when the time comes,
when winter hits and all of a sudden you have a 24-inch, 36-inch blizzard, once in a century blizzard, you're going to realize that you made a pretty shoddy deal for yourself. So think about the whole year and say, okay, well, this will be extra over 3 inches or something like that. Make a deal where you cover that and make it there. Don't make it later on when you get hit by a blizzard and then you change the terms of your agreement. Also, landscaping. There will be people that want you to do landscaping for their property. If you're in the winter, you're not going to think about cutting the grass or mowing the lawn or hedge cutting. You're going to be like, okay, yeah, I'll take it, because you're not thinking about the summertime. But when summertime hits and you realize how difficult hedging is, when you're trimming hedges, or pruning trees, you're gonna wish that you structured that deal differently. So keep that in mind. The next thing is, of course, put it down on paper so it's not forgotten.
And emails.
Put it down in an email. They call it memorialize that. Memorialize the agreement. Don't forget your yearly increases. Don't forget to put that in. I know actually a great example of a super who has not raised his price in like 20 years.
Wow. And even a slice of pizza goes up,
Of course, it used to be $1.25. I remember when I was a kid, and now it's of course $2.75 or something like that. But everything goes up. MTA goes up.
Right.
Gas goes up. Well, gas goes up and down, but MTA definitely goes up. There's things that goes up and never comes down, and that's something that subway fares. That's something that you have to calculate put in to an agreement when you start a contract, always say that every year there's going to be some sort of increase that goes on. If you feel, if people feel uncomfortable about that, you can say, and they tell you, oh, I don't want to deal with a huge jump. To say it's not going to be a huge jump. It's just going to cover, 2%. There's something called a consumer index, where there's a measure or percentage given by the government every year, which reflects inflation, which reflects the increase in cost. I probably didn't say that right because I forgot what it was. I learned it a long time ago, but it's basically telling us that every year the cost of living goes up, and that super right now who's charging 2001 pricing has not accounted for all of the increases that we faced as consumers in New York City for the past 20 years. So he's losing money. So in other words, he's making less money on those buildings than he did 20 years ago. Right? For the same amount of work, if not more, because that area has become hot now and you have a lot of people moving into that area. But you're making less money on that. So you have less money in your pocket at the end of the day to buy the same goods out there. Mm-hmm. So you want to put that in there.
So how do I put that in?
Well, just in an email you could say prices will increase every year. I mean, will increase maybe, try to think of a percentage. I mean, everybody, sprinkler companies do that, building maintenance companies do that.
So vendors and professional companies do that.
Yeah.
If they have a contract.
If they have a contract.
Or like a written agreement in this case.
Right.
In the emails. Mm-hmm. So what is that I have to Google? What percentage? The percentage?
Well...
So it's usually 2% every year.
Let me get back to you on that.
Okay. Maybe we can talk about this.
Because I would have to just brush up on my knowledge of that, and I don't want to say a number right now that may actually end up hurting you or end up overcharging your customer.
Right,
because you have to be fair. This industry is great because all of us, all the superintendents I've ever met, deeply considers and cares for their client. Mm-hmm. So I know that on the minds of every super, you want to charge what's fair. You don't want to overcharge. Right. And part of that increase is to be fair to you. Yeah. It's not to be unfair to the client, but it's to be fair to you.
Yeah, pricing is really hard.
It's super hard, which is why we should maybe talk about that on another.
Yeah, but just keep in mind that everything's gonna go up, so I should at least think about those raises before I start the building. Because once you get a position, I think as a super, you stay there for a while.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
you're
if you're part-time.
Right. Remember, that's actually a great point because buildings are long-term investments for you. Consider it a long-term investment where you're putting yourself into it, your energy into it, and you're getting money in return. And this is a long-term relationship where you're the more you put in and the more you're looked at as a valuable asset to the building, a member of the building, the more jobs you'll get, the more opportunities to do renovations or whatever extra work that you're qualified for, you can get. Those jobs can really help you, the relationships that you develop there can really help you make better and better money down the road. Mm-hmm. So these are, in a way, long-term partnerships that you create. So you want to focus on that. Another thing I'd say is how to make money on part-time buildings is don't consider not giving your phone number to the tenants or the residents that live there.
Really?
Right. Because at least for the money that you're making on a regular basis, your regular fees that they give you want to be in and out. You don't want to be, the more time you spend at the building, the less money you're making. The more energy you spend at the building, because energy really is time. The time that you spend, time is money. So what's happening is, the trend I see is that supers end up giving the number to the residents. The residents end up bombarding the super with complaints, concerns, questions, repair requests, and then next thing you know, the super is spending a lot of time answering these calls, maybe feeling pressured to go do the work. I'm not sure if they're even charging. I think about one scenario. And what ends up happening is that you spend way too much time on handling these resident phone calls.
But isn't it my job to be responsible? What if they have a leak?
Well, yeah. I mean, your job is this is. I mean, I'll separate it. You can make it your job to deal with the customer service in your building, and then you're fielding every call. Or you can be responsible for everything in your building, but you're getting that information filtered through management or the landlord. The difference is that when you get the calls through the management or the landlord, you're getting them filtered. They're filtered in the terms of importance and what they expect you to take care of. Residents won't know that distinction. They'll end up asking you for everything, and because it's often not clear when a resident, when people live in a building, it's not clear what you can ask your super to do.
That's
so
true.
They'll end up asking you for everything. And
yeah. Once I heard a super that a resident asked to feed a cat or walk a dog. Seriously, this happens.
Yeah.
If you're nice to them,
Right.
some people do actually take advantage of you.
Well, that reminds me of another super that we can talk about. But there's you're right. The being, tenants or residents often don't know the line where the responsibility starts and ends for the superintendent. So they'll innocently ask them to do far more than what a super is supposed to do. And often that's not clear. So it's really up to the manager, building manager, or the landlord to get that call first and to have it trickle down. And also it's better that way, because when a directive comes down from your client who pays you your money, there's an honest conversation as to what is part of your work and what's additional outside the scope. That's where the conversation can become very clear as to what job he's asking that you should be paid extra for and what job shouldn't be. But if it comes from a resident, because a lot of part-time supers and supers in general feel an obligation to take care of their not only the clients who are the property managers or the landlord, but also take care of the residents, they'll end up doing it. And landlords, their clients will never know about the deeds that they've done, the extra work that they've done, because it's often done without, if you're getting the phone calls directly, it'll be done without the knowledge or the awareness of the building manager or the landlord.
Yeah.
And so you end up doing the work and you end up not getting the credit for it. So
I just make the communication with the building with the building managers or the landlords. And what if someone asks me about to give my phone number?
Well,
How
they'll
do
always
I?
they'll always ask you, and
Yeah.
the easiest way to say it is, I'm sorry. There's a chain of command here. First, you got to tell the landlord in the beginning. Part of giving out your number to your residents. The flip side of that, you also have to tell the property manager and the landlord that.
Yeah, because the management might give out my
Right.
number
So you
or
have to make it,
email.
yeah. So you make it clear that this is my personal number. Please, please do not give it out to residents.
Okay, then what should I say if the manager asks why? Why not?
If you're asking me to take all your calls, I'm becoming an answering service for the building. That's a different set of responsibilities than me just cleaning the building and taking out the trash.
Okay.
Or is
What
there a
what
better-
if I'm taking the emergency service too, and manager is saying, "Oh, you should. It's part of your job. You should be taking these calls." Like, what's a
well,
nice way to say?
You're wrong.
I don't want to. Well, there are some of the things that I think is that, based on my experience, it's better to get the call from the manager or the landlord, because like a leak, if there's a leak, there are many people involved. Like there's a leak from third floor, then the people from the second floor and first floor are calling me, and I kind of get confused with the situation. I can't take 5 different phone calls at one time. So to make the communications clear, I just want to get the phone call from the management
Oh, that's
and the
interesting.
landlord.
I think that might be a better way because you're focusing on the benefit to the landlord
Yeah.
to have that phone call go through them. Yeah, that could be clear too. And it reminds me of landlords that have said, whenever landlords have said, whenever there's work in the building and a tenant asks you to do it, ask me first, they say.
Right.
And it's because I think there's an expectation that they're gonna charge extra for that service. So rather than being hit with a bill that's for all this work that a tenant has asked for directly, the landlord is saying, let me approve them first.
So I can say also, I don't want to overcharge you, or I don't want to surprise you with a bill.
Yeah, you can say that. Yeah.
So I would rather have the residents call you and you decide if I should come in or not.
Right. That's actually a much better way. Great job. But yeah, I think that's great also because yeah, I've been in situations before where in the beginning where I charged for work without the consent of the owner, of the landlord, and I ended up doing a significant amount of work and then charging back. And then of course the response was, why am I paying for this? I never approved it. And then you end up, it becomes an uncomfortable situation for everybody. So what happens now, what I learned from them was, let them know first. Call the landlord, let them know that this needs to be done, and get that approval first. And so when you talk to the landlord, when you make the calls come through the landlord, the benefit to the landlord is that the landlord gets to screen all the work requests. And how it helps you, of course, is that if you're the part-time super, you really don't want to be bombarded with, calls from every resident in the building for big and small
Yeah.
issues.
That's true. And if I have a lot of part-time buildings, I'm confused with the rules, because all the rules are different by building. Some things residents pay, some work the landlord pays. So like I can't keep track all of those. So I think it's better for the management to let me know to do
Right.
this or do that,
Right.
or the landlord.
Yeah, I definitely, when you're juggling more buildings and you have all of these rules in your head, you're gonna mess up on one of them. So, and then you're gonna end up in a situation where you're doing something that you are not supposed to do.
Yeah, especially emergencies. It's emergency, so you want to get the work done to prevent bigger repairs or dangerous situations. So I might end up doing something that kind of breaks the rules,
Right.
or you know, I thought the landlord was responsible for the bill, but tenants actually responsible for this bill in this building, and now I have to chase the tenant to get the money, and it becomes really pain in the butt.
Right. So, don't. I guess the lesson here is not to
Give out your
not to
number.
give out your numbers.
It's so easily.
Yeah.
So we talked about a lot of things today.
One last one I have here.
Oh, you do? Wow, that's a lot of
I know,
tips you have.
So one last one that I was thinking of was work as a team. Consider working as a team with other supers.
Yeah, make friends.
Make friends, because everyone has a sick day or a down day or a personal day that they want to take, and you want to be able to take those days without having to sacrifice your customers or your clients' services, right?
It's true.
And you want to be able to, working as a team. People always think, oh, if I work as a team, I'm sacrificing on my quality of work or I'm losing out on income. But on the flip side, you're able to take on more work if you work as a team, and you're able to collaborate, collaboration is always a good thing. Sharing experiences, figuring out solutions to maintenance problems, all that becomes easier to do when you have colleagues that you can ask questions
And rely
on. So when you work as a team with other supers, and let's say you have a down day and you're building, instead of having to come in when you're really sick or you're tired, if you're working with a team and they can take care of that garbage, the trash and recycling for the day and the cleaning for the day, and give you a breather.
Yeah, and I can take their cleaning when they're sick,
right,
and
right.
Yeah, it's give and take.
Yeah. So those are the things that I think you should consider when you're taking on a building, and you're looking at the building as ultimately a profitable work model versus one that you're losing money, you're losing energy, you're losing time. So you should think of it, look at every building that you have as part of your larger strategy.
Right.
On conserving as much of that as possible.
It sounds good.
Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Okay, take care, everyone. Bye.